How did Paul Craig make the middleweight limit, refuel, and then get a second round stoppage victory? Welcome to Boxing Science. Performance nutritionist Lee Rickard is going to be explaining the nutritional strategies that took place to help Paul Craig drop from light heavyweight to middleweight to perform at UFC London 2023 and also get the second round stoppage victory. So Paul Craig is UFC star, predominantly at light heavyweight. He decided after the last few fights to drop down to the middleweight limit. Now, if you're a Boxing Science follower and predominantly in boxing, this is like a super middleweight dropping down to welterweight. It's a massive drop. So he had to drop in 20 pounds in his fighting shape, which is incredible. With this, there was some important conversation decisions to be made with Paul and the team to make sure that this is done safely and effectively, but most importantly, make sure that he can perform on fight night. Lee Rickard is going to be taking you through the process of Paul Craig making the middleweight limit. That's from the initial conversations, decisions, the assessments that are needed to make sure that we know that Paul Craig can make the middleweight limit, the nutritional strategies put in place to reduce that body mass steadily throughout the camp, but also fuel training performance, and then the acute strategies on fight week to help with initial drop, and then looking at dehydration strategies to make weight. This obviously comes with a caution, show that you do this with professionals and stay within the safe body mass guidelines. The videos shot during the weight cut is from the Leathered podcast, so a big shout out to them. Go and check out their YouTube channel. And a big shout out to the team, Adam Lusby, his strength and conditioning coach from Enhanced Sports Performance, and also Paul Craig himself for putting his body through the rigors of making this weight. Absolute professional and also being an absolute beast in the octagon. So here's Lee on the science and the process behind how Paul Craig made the middleweight limit.
I'm going to talk to you about the process of how we made middleweight with Paul Craig, dropping a weight class from light heavyweight to middleweight. After a lot of discussion with Paul, S&C coach Adam Lusby, and also his management team Paradigm, we decided to give middleweight a go. But we weren't going to do it blinded, so we needed to go and start doing some kind of background research to how we was going to do it. First, we sent Paul to the UFC PI in Las Vegas to get some data on him about where he would sit around the middleweight category as well as light heavyweight. So we got a DEXA scan, and he also had an RMR done out in Vegas, and he also did it with us at Boxing Science, and then we assessed his skin folds as well. So what this allowed us to determine is actually where he sat around the middleweight category, and actually could he do it safely according to the UFC standards. From my perspective, when Paul asked me, I said we needed to get more data. I wasn't scared to go and get a second opinion. So UFC PI have got a lot of data on all their fighters, so it'd be much easier to get some of their data to see where he sits rather than me just going in it blinded. On the perspective of DEXA scan and their results, they said he could make middleweight. We will have to lose a bit of muscle and it will be difficult, but it's certainly possible. So from all this data we got from Paul was he was 99 kilograms. And then from the DEXA and also the skin folds, he had 89 kilogram of fat-free mass. So this means that we would have to lose some fat-free mass to make the 84 kilogram mark of middleweight. And he also had 11% body fat. So at light heavyweight, he's still relatively lean. So from that, we did have to get him very lean for this and also lose some muscle. So once we got all that data in terms of his resting metabolic rate, which was averaging around 2,400 calories per day, and then his current weight and also the time frame to get to London, this was when we needed to put all this together into a plan. In terms of his fight camp diet, he started at 99 kilograms and our aim was to get him to 92 kilograms for fight week. So 7 kilogram loss, and we wanted 10 weeks to do this. Any less time and I wasn't confident that we could do it at the right rate to make sure that his performance was still going to be good in all his training sessions. We put him on a quite high carbohydrate diet because Paul is a plant-based athlete. He only eats eggs, dairy and a lot of pulses and legumes. It was important that we did have a high carbohydrate diet. The reason for this is because of the amount of training he does in MMA, so training 2 to 3 times per day, around 6 days per week. Also, so some of those carbohydrates will get some incomplete protein sources there to get to his protein amount. We decided to go for a protein intake around 1.4 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of protein. We did this just so we didn't want to increase any lean muscle mass. And this is where the relationship between me and Adam was integral, his strength and conditioning coach. So what we didn't want to do is for him to do any training which really put some muscle mass on. So taking a lot of the eccentric workout to get him sore. So focusing on a lot of isometrics and a lot of concentric. So we're still aiming for performance purposes. So still getting him strong and still getting him quick and agile, but also making sure that we are limiting muscle hypertrophy. We aimed for a fat intake around 0.7 to 0.9 grams per kilogram. So this is a bit less than the 1 gram per kilogram that typically people do advise in combat sports. But we needed this just to get into an energy deficit, and I always try and prioritize a high carbohydrate diet as much as possible in training. And then the really important factor of this is we wanted to give him quite a high fiber diet. Now the reason for this is for two reasons. Is one, high fiber is quite high satiating, so it's going to keep you feeling fuller for longer. And also when you are on an energy deficit trying to get 7 kilograms off in 10 weeks, negative energy balance you're going to be needed is going to be quite large. So we need to keep him full as much as possible. Also, this will lend into fight week that when we manipulate this fiber intake to a low fiber diet, we're going to see a bigger acute weight loss strategy. So Paul was relatively consuming around 35 to 40 grams of fibre per day, and this mainly looked like maybe having some skim milk porridge with some fruit in the morning, or 3 or 4 Weetabix with some fruit. We were having like a chickpea and bean curry, and also having a bean and corn chili, and also having some like cottage cheese in terms of some sweet potato and salad. So quite high fibre to help him feel really full throughout the fight camp. So what we did is we put all this science onto paper in terms of nutrition plan for Paul to follow along with his training sessions. We manipulated carbohydrates depending on the sessions he was doing. So if he had a high intensity training session, a kind of wrestling session, which was quite high anaerobic, this was where we were prioritizing high carbohydrates. If maybe he was doing a recovery run and quite a light pad technical striking session, this is when we would reduce carbohydrates. So we went into fight week almost on point of where we wanted. So we was 92.2 kilograms 7 days out from his fight, and this was the ideal place where we wanted him to be. And it was at this point when actually I was quite confident that we could make it with a good plan. So this was when I was sleeping a lot better. So in terms of the acute weight making strategy, so we wanted him to go from 92 to 84 kilograms. Now we did do a mock weight cut before when we was looking to make middleweight. So this was where we could determine actually how much could he lose safely through water and fibre manipulation. And this was where Adam was really handy because he was doing it all the way up with Paul in Scotland. So from previous diet history of him making weight, I was confident that we could lose 4% of his weight just by reducing some carbs and fibre in his diet. So that would make us that we could be within 5 to 6% of losing the water weight on the night previous and the morning of the weigh-in. We wanted him to get to 84 kilogram, but be there for as short as time as possible. So that is literally within an hour before the weigh-in at 84, then get straight back to rehydrate. From the acute weight making strategy, we aim to lose 10% on fight week, so from 92 kilograms. We reduce this towards 6% just through reducing glycogen and fibre manipulation. So some example meals he was having on fight week was we're having a coconut milk and protein pudding with some dark chocolate. We're having some tofu with avocado and olive oil salad, full fat cheese and vegetable omelette, and we're also having like a peanut butter satay tofu stir fry. So some high energy, high fats there. We're not reducing calories that much. We are just manipulating the carbohydrates and fibre. Within the final 24 to 48 hours, that is when we did really reduce the carbohydrates. So that is where we predominantly focus just on a high protein, high fat intake, just to reduce the glycogen from Paul's muscles. And then we decided to do the acute weight making strategy. We aimed to lose 6% of water from the Thursday night to the Friday morning. We got him to do a treadmill session just to reduce some of the muscle glycogen, just a sweat out for 30 minutes. This is where we did our scientifically kind of based acute weight making strategy. So we looked at doing passive weight making strategy in a sauna blanket and in some towels to help him passively sweat. And then we got him to the night before to a certain weight where we wanted him within 3% of his fighting weight of 84 kilos. In the morning, we took the rest off just by doing a warm bath, a passive strategy in the sauna blanket for literally 45 minutes. And there we made weight. So that is all the whole process of how we made middleweight with Paul. So after we made weight, it was focus on performance, so getting Paul in the ring as well hydrated and well fueled as possible. As I said to the team is, once you make weight, you're not out of the woods yet, you still need to perform at the weight. So many people focus on the weigh-in, but really it was about, can we get him to perform at middleweight? So this is how we went about it after the weigh-in. So we've got two phases, we've got the rehydration phase and the refuel phase. So in terms of rehydration, We aim to replace his lost fluids by 175% lost, 175% times the amount we lost in the weight cut to replace that in lost fluids. And this primarily consisted of electrolytes, which was high in sodium, carbohydrates, so mainly some high GI carbohydrates, mainly from glucose and also fructose. We also added some glutamine in there and also some creatine. We added some glutamine in there because it can help some glycogen resynthesis, but also it can help in terms of digestion and reducing GI distress. So that's the last thing you want after you've cut a lot of weight, is being able to actually have a good digestive system to absorb all the nutrients without getting any stomach upset. Within the next 6 hours of him replacing the lost fluids with some carbohydrates, we aim to refuel. So our refuel strategy was from the weigh-in in the morning all the way up until the fight, which was 30 hours later. We got Paul to consume 12 to 13 grams per kilogram of carbohydrates. So this was roughly about 1,000 grams of carbs in a 30-hour period. This mainly consisted of some carbohydrates coming from fluids. So we used some glucose and fructose mixtures, we used some milkshakes, we used some coconut water and also some Vitago. We used some maltodextrin and fructose snacks such as beta fuel, bars, energy gels and fluids. And then we just got him to have some energy bars. And then we used some low fiber sources such as jasmine rice, some white basmati rice and white pasta and just some white bread. So this was to make sure that we could get the amount of fuel in to make sure that Paul's glycogen stores were saturated, ready for the fight day. Try to do it sometimes too healthily from the weigh-in to the fight. And what that means is you're going to be quite full in terms of fiber, and you're not going to get enough carbohydrates to actually replenish all your energy stores. In terms of protein, we still kept it quite low because I didn't want Paul to feel very full. We wanted him to eat. So we kept protein intake at 1.4 grams per kilogram. And we did include this in some of his carbohydrate meals and snacks. And then in terms of fat intake, we just kept it at 1 gram per kilogram from the weigh-in all the way until the fight, just to make sure that it wasn't slowing any gastric emptying. So he was still feeling quite light and also well fueled. So in terms of his weigh-in weight, we weighed in at 84 kilograms. When we went to the ceremonial weigh-in, so which was at 5 p.m, we weighed 91.5 kilograms, and that was mainly where we was just prioritizing low fiber carbohydrate snacks and fluids, and also rehydrating with all the electrolytes. That was the main phase, what we wanted to get right. Then after the ceremonial weigh-in, this was when we really wanted to get the food into Paul, when we knew he was fully rehydrated and his digestive system was back to full function. This one when we got a lot more high carbohydrate meals consisting of tomato and basil pasta with some kind of low fat cheese garlic bread. We used some pancakes with some jam and peanut butter, fruit porridge, orange juice, and also like a tofu stir fry with some jasmine rice and sweet chili sauce. All the way up until the fight, we weighed Paul just before he left, and he was at 96 kilograms as we went into the arena. All the way from middleweight in terms of chronically reducing calories to make sure that we was in a safe place doing the acute weight strategy. Then we rehydrated and refueled. So Paul got in the ring just below or almost at the exact same of his light heavyweight fighting weight. And that is how we did it for Paul to make middleweight from light heavyweight.
Okay guys, that's the end of the video. Big thank you to Lee for sharing that information, and also Paul and the team for allowing us to share that information as well. If you've got any questions about Paul Craig's weight cut, leave them in the comment box below. And also give Lee a follow on Instagram, boxingscience_nutrition, and contact him if you're wanting to work with him on a bespoke program that we share online at boxingscience.co.uk. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully see you on the next video of Boxing Science.